there. Welcome to the best daily podcast anyone has ever made or listened to. I'm Pete Dominic, and I'm the host of it. It's Stand Up. Joining me today, I've got a great new guest who is joining me for the first time. Brilliant data scientist, political scientist. She's a comedian. She's a acrobat and circus performer. And yesterday I went live with her for the first time, and people loved her. She's brilliant. Dr. Andrea Jones-Rooy joins me, and I learned a lot from our discussion. I think you're going to like it very much. And if you want to jump to it, you can. It begins at 41 minutes. But I do have your headlines and a clip show for you, as I do every day. This is the place to wake up to every morning. If you want to get the news, I've aggregated it from the best news sources I can find, the most credible reporters and best journalism, and I put it on the line for you here every day. Of course, I can't do it without your support. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Go get a paid subscription right now to be able to sustain this work and be a part of our community, which is amazing. We get together on Zoom every Thursday night at 8 p.m. I hope to see you at 8 this week. I think I might invite some special guests to join us, so I hope to see you there. All right, well, let's get to the headlines and clips I've got for you. It's time for the shit show. Of course, I like to remind you almost every week during or before this news segment that these are the aberrations. That's why it's news. There are people not shooting each other, not hurting each other, and doing nothing but bringing joy, easing suffering, and offering love. And even right now, that's right, having sex. There are people all over the world having consensual, wonderful, hot sex. Or even better, making love. That's right. So these are the bad stories. These are the aberrations, the non-normals, and that is why they make news. So let's just always try to keep that into perspective. Do our best to ease suffering and create joy, not the other way around. So here's what I've got for you today. Looks like J.D. Vance, the vice president. Hard to believe that he's the vice president, but either way, apparently the Iranians like him more than anybody else, or at least they'd rather negotiate with him more than Wickoff and Kushner, or at least they want him in the room. So apparently he's expected to leave for Pakistan today ahead of a scheduled end of the 2-week U.S.-Iran ceasefire, which just keeps changing day by day. Iranian officials said that the country's top negotiator would attend peace talks with the United States if J.D. Vance were there. So he leads this American delegation back to Pakistan just over a week after a round of talks with Iran's lead negotiator ended without a deal. In public, the New York Times writes, Iran has refused to confirm whether its officials would participate in more talks. Asked about reports of a U.S. delegation planning to travel to Pakistan, Iran's foreign ministry spokesman called it their own business. The Speaker of Iran's parliament said Monday that Iran would not attend under threats from the United States. And it seems apparently that the Iranian military is maybe at odds with the civilian leadership. I read some reporting about that. So it is a real shit show. And in Strait of Hormuz, a tense calm prevailed on Monday, a day after the U.S. Navy seized and boarded an Iranian cargo ship in the nearby Arabian Sea. The U.S. and Iran remained at an impasse over marine traffic through the strait, the strategic waterway for moving oil and gas. And the U.S. Navy said it so far turned back 27 ships as part of its blockade of Iranian ports. Oil prices have receded and stocks are gaining as investors are eyeing possible peace talks. China's leader is calling for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, the first time he's done so. Xi Jinping underscoring the strain the conflict between the United States and Iran is placing on China's economic interests. The United Arab Emirates has now opened talks with the U.S. about obtaining a financial backstop or a bailout in case the Iranian war plunges the oil-rich Persian Gulf state into a deeper crisis. We're going to give the UAE a bailout? We better not. I don't think we should. But we should watch that story very, very closely. All right, and other non-Iranian war-related news, there would be more attention on this if we weren't in that war, but it's been the 52nd strike that the U.S. military now has undergone, attacked a boat in the Caribbean Sea apparently on Sunday, killing 3 more people. The strike raised the death toll to at least 180 in the campaign by the United States against people it accuses of smuggling drugs at sea. So keeping close track of that here, thanks to Steve Bannon over at Matty blog, who I check in with every day. Yesterday, Trump fired another cabinet secretary and another woman. People are saying that he's running out of women to fire, but yesterday it was Lori Chavez DeRaymer. She is the Secretary of Labor and has been since he returned to the White House and to our national nightmare. Apparently, her tenure has been plagued by multiple scandals and an investigation that she was engaged in an extramarital affair with a member of her security team and accusations of inappropriate behavior like drinking on the job. Third Trump cabinet member this turn to be fired. All women. We'll see who's next. Kash Patel, the FBI director, has filed a $250 million lawsuit in D.C. federal court against The Atlantic. The lawsuit, like Patel himself, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and I think it's going to be dropped by his lawyers before any meaningful discovery happens, or it's going to be just dismissed. He's very upset, Cash App, about their story documenting many incidents of intoxication while he's serving as FBI director. But the story is a good story, and it was done by an award-winning reporter. I've got audio from her coming up. Her name is Sarah Fitzpatrick, and she interviewed more than 24 people about his conduct, including current and former FBI officials, staff at law enforcement and intelligence agencies, hospitality industry workers, members of Congress, political operatives, lobbyists, and former advisors. Wait, hospitality industry workers? I didn't read the article, but I'm guessing they're the ones that told the reporter, who is dogged, that they saw Cash drunk or saw people breaking into his room in a hotel or whatever it is. But it is a disgrace, and so is he, and maybe he won't last through the week, some people were saying. Okay, speaking of him, our national nightmare continues, and he is somehow still the president and getting crazier by the day, which is hard to believe. But yesterday, he was posting like crazy, and I just mention it because in the old days, we might have just been so shocked, but now we just get used to it, and we might pick one or two posts out to mention, to read, to share his insanity. But yesterday he was all over the place, and I just can't get into it. I just can't. But you should know that he's posting a lot and calling Democrats traitors and contradictory things about the war and more. But I got to just get to a couple of other headlines that are very important from yesterday, including that now Israel's military is saying that a member of their own, IDF, was in fact photographed swinging a sledgehammer at a statue of Jesus. Did you see this picture? Not good. Really a bad thing for so many reasons. And they're admitting to this one as opposed to denying it and trying to clean it up. But that's going to be tough. Yesterday, the Supreme Court agreed to consider whether Catholic preschools in Colorado that reject LGBTQ families can receive state funds. I had a great conversation with Eric Siegel about that yesterday live. I'll share that with you later or tomorrow, but it is available right now to watch on YouTube and Substack. Very important story, and we talked about a lot more as well. Yesterday, the state of California is accusing Amazon of engaging in price fixing by pressuring brands to ask competing retailers to increase prices. So that's an interesting story. Also, the federal government is going to now allow companies to submit documentation to recover whatever they had to pay in tariffs that the Supreme Court ruled to be illegal. What an unbelievable clusterfuck that has been. New reporting from what happened in El Paso when they shut down the airport back in February. It was a high-powered military laser that caused the city's airspace to be shut down. Not the airport, the airspace, I think. Is that right? Yeah. Yesterday, we learned that the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, stepping down from the position that he's held since 2011 when he took over the company from Steve Jobs. He's going to become the executive chairman of Apple's board. Their new CEO is longtime employee named Jon Turnus. He's expected to take over as CEO by the end of the summer. He currently oversees hardware engineering at Apple. I read about it. He's a pretty interesting guy, and obviously one of the richest companies in the world that all of us are familiar with and probably own stuff from. This is a huge story yesterday. A lot of people talking about it. Very important. The Onion, the satirical website and organization, says it is a new deal to take over conspiracy theorist Alex Jones' InfoWars media company. If approved, the satirical news website could turn InfoWars into a parody of itself. Got a couple clips from the guys who are involved with that coming up. And finally, in a science headline, researchers apparently gave cocaine to salmon, and they swam faster and traveled farther than their sober counterparts. I love this study, and I wish I hadn't mispronounced counterparts, but I'm going to leave it in there for Vicky. All right, well, here's the headline. These salmon got high on cocaine, and that wasn't the craziest part. Scientists in Sweden made an unexpected discovery when they exposed fish to the illegal drug as well as another substance. What? Okay. Those are your headlines. Now let's get to the clips that I've gathered for you today. All right, I want to start with a great one that comes from our friend Wajahat Ali, who was just with us out in Las Vegas. He has just made such a name for himself in all the best ways, in my opinion, over the past couple of years, fighting for democracy, against sexism and misogyny and so much more. And so he was on Piers Morgan's YouTube show, which is massive, which is huge. And Piers brings on the most, the political talking heads and pundits and commentators, analysts with the biggest followings he can find, and just has them bashing each other. So last night he had Tim Miller from The Bulwark, who's a pretty big deal, and Waj is a pretty big deal, on with Pastor Doug Wilson, pastors in quotes, as Waj points out here. Doug Wilson, of course, is this guy from Moscow, Idaho, who we have talked about with the host of Extremely American, that NPR show series, which is so good, Heath Drusen. We've talked with him a couple of times not too long ago about Doug Wilson. And so there he was. This is Pete Hegseth's pastor, who has gone from way out on the fringe to the absolute mainstream. He's there praying in the Pentagon with Hegseth. He's got crazy beliefs, Christian nationalist, white supremacist, but he's affable. He's got a big white beard, and he laughs, and he doesn't raise his voice, and he doesn't sound like he's spewing all kinds of horrible things because of his tone. But he is. He absolutely is. The things he's saying, it's just the way he says them make him somehow a little bit more likable to people, or somehow passable, because it's not all fire and brimstone. But anyway, this is such a good clip because Waj and Tim Miller are on with him, and I want to watch the whole thing, but I brought as much as I could. Let's do it. And it has already gone viral, as you can imagine.
As the show started out, I thought we were supposed to refrain from attacking religious leaders.
I have no problem attacking
you attacked the Pope.
Well, I have no problem. Listen, real quick, Pastor. I have no problem attacking wolves in sheep's clothing. I have no problem attacking a man who wrote that American slavery was mutually harmonious between the slave master and the slave. That's you. I have no problem attacking a man who proudly says he wants to do away with the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. I have no problem attacking a man like yourself who sits here incoherently supporting an incoherent, unwinnable, illegal war in Iran. I have no problem attacking you, a man who is the religious leader of Pete Hegseth, a man who's a cosplay crusader who's leading some type of crusade, probably you put him on, as a Secretary of Defense, getting Americans and innocent civilians killed. I wish you would be a better Christian. I wish you would open up the Bible. I wish you would meet the Jesus that I met when I went to an all-boys Jesuit Catholic high school. The Jesus that took care of the sick, that took care of the poor, that welcomed the immigrant, that welcomed the marginalized, that helped them. But instead, you've used Jesus as a mascot for, I don't know, your white Christian supremacy, your cruelty, your misogyny. And I'm so glad that people are finally waking up to your cruelty and to the idiocy of your star disciple, Pete Hegseth, who keeps messing up and literally does not read the Bible and quotes Pulp Fiction. Just sit with them. Maybe both of you could read the Constitution, read the Bible, and just take a break.
Yeah.
Who less?
Yeah,
all right, Pastor, your response.
Just incidentally, we know that Jesus was not a socialist because he could actually feed people.
Wonderful. Great response.
That's what you got.
Oh, it was great. It was great. Nothing better than his response, and that long silence left it in for you right now. Hopefully you realize that was what was happening. Better when you watch it, but man, that was epic. And sometimes things go viral for all the right reasons. And that clip that Waj then shared it on social media, and probably millions of people have seen it since last night alone, and will today even more. So go watch it, go support Waj, and subscribe to all of his stuff. So good. He'll be back with us soon. But he's voting because he lives in Virginia today. So if you're living in Virginia, you have to vote too. And here's a message from former Republican. Maybe he's still Republican, but it's Adam Kinzinger. And he made a video yesterday telling everybody to vote for Democrats. Here he is, and here is why.
So if you live in Virginia, I got some good news for you. Tomorrow you have an opportunity to make a stand. You have an opportunity on Tuesday to vote yes for the redistricting amendment that's on the ballot in front of you. Here's the deal. Back, 6 months or a year ago, the Republicans made a decision to redraw the maps in Texas, not because there was some injustice or something that was done unfair, but because they knew they were going to lose this coming November. And Donald Trump made it clear to Republicans that he wanted them to draw new lines so they could win more seats. This is only done usually at the turn of a decade. And the Republicans assumed that the Democrats, who believe in good governance and things like redistricting reform, would just sit back and take it. Oh, no. Maybe they'd wag their finger and tisk them. But actually, Democrats have made a decision to fight back. The only way to stop this kind of abuse is not by a good lecture, not by a good speech, but it's by actually fighting back against the Republicans. And in fact, maybe it backfires against them. Making it very clear that while we do believe in redistricting reform, we're not going to sit back and allow you to win this election by means other than going out and convincing Americans to vote for you. So you have a huge opportunity in Virginia tomorrow. Vote yes on this redistricting amendment. It'll revert back to the fair way of doing it in 2030. But the biggest thing is it sends a message to the Republicans. If you want to win, go out and compete for people's votes. You're not going to go out and steal an election or try to draw new maps so that you can have an unfair advantage. So go vote yes on this. Look, I hate gerrymandering. I've been a victim of gerrymandering. But this is going to continue and continue until both sides are fighting fair, and then both sides agree that we need real reform. So if you're in Virginia, go vote yes on Tuesday. This is so important. Make it clear to the Republicans that they are not going to be able to take this election simply by drawing different maps whenever they want.
There you go, Adam Kinzinger. If you're in Virginia, obviously get out there and vote. Sorry, I didn't say that earlier or promote that election earlier, but important, very important. All right, now I mentioned that Atlantic reporter, Sarah Wright, and the Atlantic is being sued by Kash Patel for their piece on him, which he's calling a hit piece and so on. Anyway, Sarah Wright, the reporter, was on MS Now with Jen Psaki. I just like the way that she has confidence and talks about herself and her work here and points to how ridiculous this lawsuit is. And it's also just an important moment and demonstration of good journalism, as far as I can tell. Here she is.
To respond to this reaction to your piece, because Patel's advisor, Erica Knight, called your piece fabricated stories. She said that every serious D.C. reporter passed on. Sarah Fitzpatrick and Jeffrey Goldberg printed it anyway. Lawsuit is being filed. What do you say to that?
I say that I am a very careful, very diligent, award-winning investigative reporter with a history of award-winning work across multiple organizations. You and I, in fact, have worked together previously. I stand by every word of this reporting. We have excellent attorneys, and it is a surprising statement, but a very telling statement, I believe. And I would also note, we reached out for comment to the White House and to the Justice Department, neither of which disputed anything. We gave multiple opportunities, including 19 detailed questions. So we stand by every word. And look, this is telling because there are so many people. You alluded to it earlier. These are not the types of people who are willing to speak out outside of the FBI, especially right now, because Kash Patel is going after people with polygraphs in a way that has never happened at the Bureau. So for it to be this level of alarm, this is people genuinely concerned that America is in danger as a result of this conduct. And I feel, a real responsibility to take care of that reporting incredibly carefully. And The Atlantic is nothing but diligent, and we have amazing lawyers and amazing editors, and I stand by every word.
Yeah, I like it. She sounds great. And very important story. So there you have it. All right, let's go to Fox Business. I hate to do this to you because it's Maria Bartiromo, and she's just screaming, and it's just her. She's terrible. She's a terrible person. Her voice is terrible. But Ro Khanna is her guest, and that's why I'm bringing it to you. Here it is. I don't think I need to set it up anymore. Bunch of lies from her and interruptions, and he does a great job as always.
Under Obama's leadership on Iran was better because under President Obama, there were 14 wire transfers to a, hold on. There were 14 wire transfers to a Swiss account linked to Hezbollah between 2014 and 2016. That was a total of $1.7 billion. The same $1.7 billion he told Congress was frozen Iranian assets. Now, there was a back channel to Tehran through a Valerie Jarrett, active for 2012 to 2024. This was after he left office. So, it was almost like a shadow government. He also sent pellets of cash in a plane to Iran. Now, why would you send money to Iran knowing that they are building a nuclear weapon and they are the leading sponsor of terrorism?
Barack Obama was a great statesman who left America much safer. I wouldn't put Donald Trump in the same paragraph. The reality is when President Obama left, because of the great efforts of people like Valerie Jarrett, we had 97% of the enriched uranium out. The reality is we didn't have 13 American service members dead. The reality is we never had gas go up from $2.30 to $4. The reality is we did not give China more role in the region. Let me finish, Maria. I'll let you finish.
Okay,
we didn't give China more role in the region. We did not give the IRGC a more hardline regime in there. You know why? Because Obama actually did his homework. He actually tried to engage in statesmanship. He got China, Russia, the entire European allies on board with getting Iran on a path to not having a nuclear weapon. All Trump did is listen to Netanyahu. That's his entire foreign policy. And you know what? I resent the fact that Israel is going to tell the United States what to do. The American president should call the shots in this country.
The American president should call the shots in this country, but you and your colleagues are trying to clip his wings right now with this war powers vote. I agree. The president is in charge. But look, a lot of the things that you just said are just not true, Congressman. I mean, look, we have to look at this realistically. And President Obama sent money to the Iranians. And what did they do? They resumed their buildup of enrichment.
That's not true.
Yeah,
not true.
What's not true? Not true? What specifically about that sentence is not true?
There was a deal that we reached to get 97% of the enriched uranium out. In the process of that, Iran had certain assets that were Iranian assets. Wasn't our money. That was unfrozen. And that was a deal that China, Russia, France, UK, Canada, the United States all agreed to. And then you had Netanyahu come in and try to torpedo it, and AIPAC tried to torpedo that deal. We were on a path to having a denuclear Iran, but what happened is it wasn't in Netanyahu's interest and AIPAC's interest, and they've dragged us into another war in the Middle East. They've hurt American people, and the American people are tired of it. They want people who are going to be Team America. They want people who are going to bring gas prices down here and care about our nation and get us out of these wars, and that's why Obama won. He was against the Iraq war. That's why he was on a path to normalization in terms of getting Iran to be denuclear, and had the whole world on our side. And AIPAC, Netanyahu tore that up.
There you go. Good stuff by Ro Khanna. Loved it. All right, now I want to go to the CEO of The Onion. It's Ben Collins, who explains why he so doggedly never let go of the effort to take over, purchase InfoWars. And Ben Collins is a pretty good guy. I've been following his whole career from the Daily Beast to NBC, where he covered far-right conspiracy theorists with his colleague Brandy Zadrozny for years. And I've loved his reporting, wrote a book about it as well. Interesting guy, interesting career, and has talked about the emotional toll of covering all this disinformation and its effects. When he resigned from NBC News in January 2024, read a book all about it. Anyway, here he is now in this new gig as CEO of The Onion, and this is what he said to Pablo Torre, who you may or may not be familiar with, but also a great journalist on his show, Pablo Torre Finds Out. This is yesterday.
You're not buying InfoWars. You're buying Alex Jones's personal harassment campaign for the rest of your life. You are inheriting this thing. You're taking on all of this bullshit forever. Like, we were just talking about strength and how he views strength. Alex Jones views
shirtless on a horse.
Yeah. And what I've realized over the last 18 months is strength is actually sticking through to what you believe and what is the right thing to do for people who would otherwise just abandon it. It's not about showing up on a horse and taking big pills until your voice sounds like this down here. That's not what it is. Or bombing the shit out of countries and yelling at people about it. Or, sending your mass goons into cities and beating the shit out of women and shooting them in the face. That's not strength. That's actually like the opposite. That's insecurity. Strength is knowing that you're going to walk into bunch of people saying insane shit about you and keep walking. I just think, Pablo, there is a moment in your life where you see a bunch of evil shit happening and you have a chance to stop something that is particularly egregious. And if you walk away from it, I just don't know why you're alive, you know? And I decided, with the help of everybody in my life and family, that like I just wasn't going to drop this. And I just didn't want to make it so our most grievous sin as a country, which is mass shootings of kids in school, where financializing that and getting away with it is fine. If we can't draw a line there, then there is no line anymore. You can just do whatever you want, whatever evil shit you want, and make as much money you want. Friends of mine were like, wasn't it cool that time you like, you know, you hip checked Alex Jones and like, and I was like, no, dude, we're still going for it. And they'd be like, yeah, that's cute, Ben. It's nice that you're doing that. Everyone had just given up on the premise. And I wasn't going to give up on these families. I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Sounds like a really good guy, right? At least that's my impression of him. Well, there you go. And also, this is in a related story. One of my favorite, I'm not that familiar with Tim Heidecker, but he has been around as long as I have in the world of comedy and entertainment and politics and podcasting. And he's a really funny guy. And they announced yesterday that he would be the Onion's creative director. And so he went on and made a video about all of this, riffing on the Onion's plan for the site's future. And I love it. He starts with his impression of Alex Jones and then switches back to himself. It's good.
Everybody, I got some breaking news for you. It's looking very likely that global tetrahedron will seize control of InfoWars in the coming days. The folks at Global Tetrahedron have asked me to step in as to run the show over there and become a big part of the future. So we're exploring. Sorry. My name is Tim Heidecker. I'm just here to let you know that I am now in charge of InfoWars. It's an honor to take over the reins and chart a new path towards the future. We're looking forward to relaunching the site soon in the next coming months, and we're not really sure what we're going to do with it. We're talking about all sorts of ideas. We were playing around with it being a real estate broker service or a cryptocurrency exchange market, a place to store pictures, most like a Dropbox account. Not sure. A lot of ideas, but very excited to take this on. And just want to wish everyone, extend a hand of friendship and grace as we proceed through this process. It's not going to be easy, but I can assure you that we have our best intentions in mind. We are in the city of brotherly love, and I want to extend that sentiment to all our friends over there, longtime fans and consumers of the InfoWars products. We've got some exciting products coming as well. We're working with a company that will enable you to turn your urine into gold. So stay tuned for more information about that, and stay with us. Stay updated on InfoWars for more information as this story develops.
Yeah, very happy about this conclusion and following it pretty closely. So great stuff there. All right, and here's our friend S.E. Cup, who I haven't had on in a while, but I should. Nothing's happened. Somebody reached out to me recently about it. Why haven't we heard from S.E. Cup? Well, here she is on CNN with a great riff, basically welcoming those former pro-Trumpers who have given up on him and saying, but you're not getting a pat on the back. Anyway, it's a pretty fun riff, and here it is.
Lost their appetite for Trump. Absolutely. Congratulations. I'm sorry he disappointed you. I know exactly how he did, by promising you things he's completely ignored. I get you. Come on over. The water's warm. But for the professional liars, losers, and grifters, no, we don't want you. And just because you've come to where we have been for 10 years doesn't mean you get to use us to launder your reputations. Not happening on my watch. Ooh. And I don't like this conversation where it's like, well, shouldn't we give them credit? No credit. It's in the 11th hour. It's the 11th hour of this. He is a lame duck. He is gone in 2 years.
Guys.
What took you so long? I'm sorry. Somebody stop me or I will just...
How do you really feel?
Yeah, exactly. This is personal. I've gotten death threats. I have lived this life at the expense of profession, at the expense of friendships, at the expense of money. I've done it. It's been hard, but it's my conscience telling me to do it. You don't get to flip a switch and say, I don't like him
anymore. That got cut off. And now here is Tucker Carlson, who is an actor, no doubt, but also this is all acting. But it does sound like he's taking responsibility for his role in supporting and promoting and helping Donald Trump get elected. But it's acting. And I don't know who the asshole he has on talking to him, but that guy agrees. And so any of these right-wing Trump supporters who have huge audiences who turn against him, it's worth it. It's good. So send this one to your friends. I hate to play it for you. It's got the Tucker laugh in it. I think it's almost 2 minutes, but here it is.
It's like else who supported him. You wrote speeches for him. I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. It's like in very small ways, but in real ways, you and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now.
Yes.
So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional. That's all I'll say. But anyway, the question does present itself immediately. Like, what is this? Was this always the plan? You don't want to be a conspiracy nut, but like clearly there were signs of low character. We knew that.
Yes.
But it didn't. There are tons of people of low character who like outperform their character. It doesn't have to be
sort of the norm, actually, these days. I would say
I've outperformed my character a lot. I don't have especially high character, right? But you try your best. But what was this? Was this always the plan?
Looking back after the last year and a half, it seems like it kind of was, and it's easy. Well, you could get really deep about it and say, what was Butler? Like, how was it that and Ryan Ruth, I mean, he was subject to 2 legitimate assassination attempts. Have we ever gotten to the bottom? I know you've talked a lot about this, but have we ever gotten to the bottom of that?
I haven't talked a lot about it. I don't know the answer, but I know that those investigations have been stymied. Fact.
Yeah, stymied from the very top, from people who actually would have the power to get to the bottom of it.
And the motive.
Feeling. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Very much. So, the enormous amount of money he got from Miriam Adelson now seems suspect to a lot of people at the time. But, there's a lot of money in politics. To run for president requires an enormous, Kathleen Camel-Toe went through $2 billion in 4 months. So, sure, there's an argument to be made that you get money from those who will give it to you. It's just the nature of that game. But it's still reprehensible, and it's still a big question mark. Why would someone who has obvious and demonstrated allegiance to a foreign power give Donald Trump $250 million while he's running for president? I mean, how is that defensible? It's really not. If Russia had given a PAC for Trump, if the mayor of Moscow had somehow assembled an enormous amount of money and put it in a 501c3 for Trump's benefit, would that have been acceptable? Of course it wouldn't have been. So what does it's so basic, comes back to the money. Like, what did they get in return for that amount of investment? And it's clear.
I get it. No, of course, I agree with every word that you're saying. I just think given his behavior and his demonstrated disloyalty and viciousness to previous supporters.
Yes.
Why wouldn't he display the same lack of loyalty to Miriam Adelson? That's kind of the question. The only people he's been loyal to are the neocons and his donors.
All right. Well, that was weird, right? That was a weird experience to hear and to listen to. Let's have a little fun. Here's my appearance on the Today Show in Australia yesterday with my friend David Campbell and his co-host Sylvia. And you can't see, there's something you got to see, but I thought it was a pretty funny idea for a bit because They told me they were going to ask me how Americans are dealing with all of this. How stressful is it day to day? All the chaos in our country, basically, is what they were suggesting. So they said they were going to ask me that. So I sent them an old headshot of me from like 20 years ago when I had hair. And so the control room put it up on the screen. But you should watch it. I'll share it on social media. But I think hearing it is fun as well. So here is the few minutes I spent yesterday on Australia's Today Show.
Welcome back. Well, Donald Trump is now the least popular he has ever been here in Australia as the conflict in the Middle East wages on.
The US president has crashed out to a net favourability rating of negative 44%.
How do you even measure that?
Oh, we're joined. You know who'll know? US political commentator Pete Dominic, live in New York. Pete, how do you even know that?
I mean, I'm alive. I have eyes and ears, and I'm experiencing it. Yeah, today he got his lowest approval ratings ever, and I think of any president of our lifetime, like 37% in the U.S. according to one poll. But yeah, things are looking pretty bad for him, and I guess that's good for the world. You guys can tell me your perspective, but I hear, yeah, his approval rating down there is no good either, because apparently Australia and New Zealand, you guys are rationing energy as a result of our war of choice. Sorry.
Yeah, it's almost like starting a war without approval is bad. Or not to mention he's taken aim last week at the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, and then J.D. Vance sort of backed him up, saying that maybe he should, be careful about talking about theology, which is his job. So what's your take on all of that?
I mean, isn't it cringe to everybody when someone lectures an expert where they're not? That'd be like me telling you how to sing. And if anybody ever heard me sing, they'd realize it's the mating call of a dying bird. But yet it would be bizarre for me to say that, for me to tell you how to do your job. Also, J.D. Vance is like a converted Catholic. And also, guess what? J.D. Vance, not his real name. But he's got a new book out where he's talking about being a Catholic with a Methodist church on it. The man has no credibility. And picking a fight with a pope, and by the way, the American pope, who American Catholics really like, not the greatest idea if you want to run for president.
You know, it's interesting to us that obviously, his standing with Australians has dipped, but I reckon he probably cares very little about that. How is he going in the polls at home in America? What's happening there?
Terrible. Worst that we've seen of both of his terms. He's doing terribly. He has just started this horrific war. And, the thing, we could talk about the Epstein files, and we can talk about any number of his failures. He's, by the way, today, a third cabinet secretary. He's fired, and it's also one of 3 women. He's running out of women to fire guys. But more than anything, I could sit here and tell you all kinds of consequences. You could too, but we all know the answer. It's gas prices. That's going to make no one like you, and it's going to affect everybody, including the most apathetic of people.
Well, with Trump, you do expect the unexpected, Pete. Do you think that people, Americans there especially, are getting sick of the unpredictability he brings?
It's so bad. We're so tired. I mean, can't you tell? Look at me. I look like an old sea captain. I actually sent your control room a picture of me from about a month ago. That's me.
That's
1 month ago.
Fake news. Fake news.
I don't even believe you had hair.
You were never that handsome.
You were born the way you look now.
That was 1 month ago. You should see other Americans.
What effect is it having on his standing with Americans, this flip-flopping, one day I'm doing this, the next day I'm doing that, the strait is open, the strait is closed, I'm going to be, even tougher tomorrow. It's so hard to keep up.
Yes, I mean, he has lost so much support here in America, overwhelmingly. There will always be these core supporters. I think they're like in a cult. A lot of people kind of look at that way, that will always support him no matter what. But overwhelmingly, he's lost support. We have elections coming up in November where it looks like it's going to be a landslide. Every election, every special election we've had in the past few months since he's been reelected, sadly, has been a landslide for Democrats, almost every one of them. So everything looks terrible for not only Trump, but Republicans. But he's also going to try to rig that election or say it was rigged. So it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. But he is clearly less popular now than he has ever been. And I think that's a good thing. People are fed up. We are done overwhelmingly.
There was a major article in the papers here last week with a lot of health experts who are voicing concerns that the president is showing signs, or has been showing signs for a while, of dementia. Now we're reading there are calls for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. That's where, I guess, Congress removes the president. Is that even a possibility? Can that be done?
likely it will never be done. It's not only 2/3 of Congress, but I think it's 2/3 of his cabinet secretaries, including his vice president. I can't possibly see that happening, and I don't want to give anybody false hope. So, and I don't want to say anything else about the man's health, but it's doesn't look good. He doesn't seem sharp. He's almost 80 years old. It's a hard job for anybody, and he proves it every day how much of a failure he is when he can't remember some of the most basic things, like where his dad was born and his kids' names and any number of things. I think he probably knows Eric, but he couldn't tell by the way he talks about him.
Very difficult to diagnose anything from afar, but I would say this for certain. You are getting more handsome by the day, Pete Dominic.
I appreciate that. Now, you have recently admitted that you have an eye issue, right? What? A vision issue?
Can't see a thing. But it's lovely working with Richard Wilkins.
Appreciate that.
Every day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
See you soon.
So to come on Today Extra.
All right, we had fun. Did you have fun? Do you like it when I share those? I hope you do. It's morning TV, you know? It's fun. It's peppy. It's punchy. You take even the worst things and try to have some fun with them, and I think we do. Basically, because Campbell's my best friend, it doesn't hurt, and I've got to know his co-anchor, Sylvia, who is obviously unafraid to take the piss out of me, as they all are down there. So it's great. All right, I had fun. Hope you enjoyed that. Those are the clips that I've gathered for you for today, and the headlines. Again, can't do it without your support. This is an ad-free show. This is why I plug the subscriber link so that you can pay for my work. Okay, it's free, but it's not cheap, right? It costs a lot. So it's patreon.com/Pete Dominic. You can also subscribe now on Substack for, I think, $6 or more. Substack.com @StandUpWithPete. And so I hope to see you at either of those places and at our hangout on Thursday night, at our Discord platform. Anytime you can meet other stand-up listeners. Our community continues to grow, filled with amazing, awesome, hilarious, thoughtful, kind people. And so you're one of them. Thank you for being here. All right, now it's time to get to my guest today. Very, very smart, impressive, funny. I was on panel with her on Dino Bidala's show with John Fugelsang last Friday night, and I was just really impressed with her. She's a data scientist, a former professor, a comedian, the host of Behind the Data podcast, and I learned a lot from her. I'm looking forward to talking to her again. BehindTheDataShow.com is her website. You can look more into it. Follow her on Instagram, Andrea Jones Rooy, 2 O's in Roy. Really a wide-ranging, wonderful conversation. So here it is right now. Okay, very excited because I've just met my guest when we were both on panel along with John Fugelsang on Dino Bidala's show that aired Friday night. I aired that hour here. I stole it, lifted it, and reposted it here because it was so good. And even though we didn't give Andrea a chance to speak, we really did not practice what we preach. I was really impressed, and I'm really excited to talk to you. Dr. Andrea Jones Rooy joining me here on Stand Up for the very first time ever. We've gone live. We've just been talking. We were on that panel, but I was just really impressed by both your intelligence, your humor, and once I looked into your background, I was like, oh, I really have to have a conversation with this person. So thank you very much for agreeing to join me.
Sure. Thank you for having me. And if you haven't listened to the Friday panel that we did together, it was a lot of fun. And Pete was a great ally because I would start to say things and then various other dudes would interrupt me. And he said, actually, Andrea was speaking. So you're a hero for us all. So thank you.
It's funny
the bar is low for heroes, but you've still passed it.
You know, sometimes how much is like gendered stuff less gendered and more just about I'm kind of very interested in self-awareness and myself being self-aware. And it's just like, maybe if you were a man, I would have said, this person's not getting a chance to speak. Right. And it wasn't because you're meek or shy. Like there's nothing about you that says that. It was just literally, boom, we were talking over you, but I noticed it. So I don't know. It's just maybe sometimes I'm self-awareness and sharing on a panel.
No, I like it. I think, and look, if more of us were like that, I think we would all, and it doesn't have to be a gender-related thing, but I think if more of us were doing that, we would all, and because no one wants to be on a panel where one person is dominating, even if it's like a corporate conference or a meeting or a live stream or whatever. So I support it.
Yeah, and I think we know more about that because those of us who were just on panels professionally should have a perspective, a professional one. But now everybody's on a panel at work through Zoom or whatever remote software they use. And you notice, much less if you do it socially, who's talking a lot.
Well, I was on a Zoom and I don't have my own Zoom, so I just glom onto various other corporate Zooms, and some fancier corporate Zooms, like, will actually send you data afterwards that says the percentage of time each person talked. And it's been very validating to get these reports after certain meetings and be like, yeah, I thought that fucker talked most of the time. And it's like, this dude had like 80%. You're like, I'm going to send him a bar chart. That's what I'm going to do. There's other creepy things, though, where they're like, what was the demeanor of everybody? And like, that feels problematic, but overall airtime, let's track it.
Oh, that's really interesting. The demeanor question of everybody in a meeting.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get to know you a little bit. I want my audience to get to know you if they don't already. And then we're going to talk about a bunch of different issues that you can speak to, obviously, as an expert in many ways, but also just news. Like that's what you were doing on that panel. That's what we do on that Friday panel with Dean. He goes through a bunch of stories and we have fun with them, really, and give thoughts on them. So I certainly always want to do that. And I'm always looking for new people and perspectives to do it. But learning about you, you have a PhD in data science?
Political science.
Political science.
Yeah. I'm old enough that data science didn't exist as a field until after I finished. So data science has probably been around for like 10 years, and I defended my dissertation like 12 years ago. So, but I consider it the same thing. So I did a really quantitative political science. So basically use data to understand politics. And then when the word data science came along, I was like, oh, that's a lot better, because when you walk into a room and tell people you study political science, they want to yell at you about, 9/11. But if you say data science, everyone assumes you're really smart.
Oh, that's absolutely right. That's exactly.
Yeah. Like I would sit on a plane. What do you do for a living? It's like, oh, political science. They're like, oh, do you know who killed JFK? Because I do. It's like, oh boy.
I almost feel like that's probably an older take than nowadays. If you say political science, they just look at you, as we all look at each other, no matter what your degree is, and say, Earth 1 or Earth 2?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So take me through your education and your kind of early journey. Like, what did you do your undergrad in? What did you think you were going to be? Because you're also, interestingly, a stand-up comic and an acrobat. And I watched this whole video of your, who is it, New York Post? Did a piece on you. Kind of more comprehensive of who you are, but a lot of it was you performing as an acrobat, which is just like, who does this? You're a very original, interesting, nonconformist. But just take me through, like, what were you gonna be? What was your dream, and what'd you get your undergraduate degrees in?
Yeah, I was clear the next 12 to 14 days, and we'll probably get through it. But the short version is I had no idea. I was one of those kids that was like super aimless, didn't know, had this vague sense that I wanted to be a performer of some kind. I did like musical theater, but I can't sing. I went to college, didn't know what I was doing. 9/11 happened, and around that time, we're all here today because of Osama bin Laden, and that is true. I was in an international relations course when 9/11 happened, and the professor was so incredible, and he translated everything from our work, or like we were reading these old books or whatever. He translated it all to try to better understand what had just happened, like that semester. And I was like, we can use big ideas to understand the present. This is insane. And I loved it. And so I was like gung-ho on this. He recommended going for a PhD, and I thought, why not? Why make a choice for myself? I'll just do what that guy says. Went to a PhD program. He was a smart dude. Went to a PhD program at the University of Michigan. I thought I was signing up to write big sweeping essays for like foreign affairs about like the fundamental nature of justice and why humans will always go to war, like Hobbes and shit like that. And I got to Michigan, and they made us do like algebra and statistics and game theory, which is just a shit ton of math and programming. And it turns out you should read the description of the program you apply to, because it was a quantitative program. I don't know how I got in. I hadn't taken a math class in like 12 years. I had no business being there. So they forced me to learn all this math. I had self-esteem that was too low to leave. I was like, I got to prove I can do this. And so I eventually, after 3 years of like beating my head against the wall, came to realize that numbers are really useful. And so I feel very strongly today that if someone is watching who thinks, oh, I'm not a math person, data's not for me. Yes, it is. Anyone can be a math person. Anyone can work with data. You just have to be able to count and think really hard. That's it. So anyway, so I ended up getting like kind of drinking the Kool-Aid and getting very obsessed with using data to understand complicated things like politics. I was a professor at NYU's Shanghai campus and then at NYU here in New York City for many years. And a couple of years ago, I left because I wanted to get the good news about data science and political science out into the world. And so whether you want to say I do data science with a focus on politics or political science with a data lens, I consider it the same thing. And yeah, along the way, I always liked performing. I always liked moving. I always liked dancing. And so I would like during summer breaks, because I had summer breaks until 2 years ago, as a professor, I would go do comedy in New York. I started with improv. I switched to stand-up. I started stand-up in China, actually. And then in the meantime, I also, to be sane, found circus. I sound chaotic. It has been chaotic. But academia and data science and spreadsheets are they're beautiful and they're interesting, but they're also very deadening and isolating. And so comedy and circus have been ways to sort of keep myself interested in my own life. Has very helpful for mental health. I mean, comedy maybe not for mental health, but circus for sure for mental health. And all, I can talk about this forever too, but I'll just say this, that all along the way when I was in academia trying to be a professor and blah, 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 everyone in my life was telling me to stop doing these other silly things, and I would try. I would say, you're right, no more circus, no more comedy, I need to focus and be serious. And then I would just get miserable and depressed that I couldn't do anything. And so then slowly I would be like, I'll just go to one open mic, or like, I'll just go to one workshop. And eventually I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to do all three things. And so I do all three things medium well. That would be better at each if I focused more, but that's
I mean, I guess we would all be better at a thing that we've mostly focused on. But you described your kind of life or your interests as kind of chaotic sounding. But I mean, I see it more as full. You have a full life of several passions, and I relate to that. I too have a lot of things make me happy, and I enjoy doing all kinds of things and participating in all kinds of ways to express myself, of course. And when you said comedy, you know, what that does, I think what you were trying to say, that people, I heard it, but people who don't do comedy think, oh, it's a hard life to some extent. But I think what you're trying to say is your kind of comedy helps you get to know yourself. You mine your own biography and personality and life experiences for relatable things or just funny things. And that really helps to get to know you. I went to acting school, but I knew I never wanted to be an actor because I don't like pretending to be somebody else. And I had a lot more fun talking about my own stuff that came up. And that is a really expressive way and helpful way to get to know yourself, as long as you don't think that believe what everything in the industry tells you about you.
Well, that's part of the trick, is that every industry has its own form of toxicity, to use an overused social media word. But my sense is that the acting world could suck you in pretty hard. But that's great. I mean, that's the ideal, is you go and pop into some world, use it to learn more about you, and you discover along the way, like, oh, I actually prefer talking about myself. I was the same way with improv. A friend of mine, I was doing improv for years, and a friend of mine said, Andrea, what sorts of characters do you normally do? And I was like, I don't know, standing still, angry, arms crossed. And I was like, maybe I should try stand-up. Maybe that's the ticket. I was like, I've never done a character in my life. What are you talking about? Anyway. But you get it, because you're here, you do comedy, but you're also super engaged in politics, and sort of talking about things in a serious way as well. So we all have multiple parts to ourselves.
So political science is an interesting area of study. I just have to ask one selfish question, because my 18-year-old daughter is about to enroll in the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands to study to be a political science major. Nice. And so I might ask you to do me a favor and talk to her.
Happy to.
I always tell her to look for mentors, both my daughters. I have two. I don't talk about the other one.
I won't ask you about her.
Please don't.
No.
You don't talk about Ava.
No.
But so what is that? What is a political science major expected to do? She's considering going to law school. And I think, like most people, she'll meet people and have experiences that will change the trajectory of her life academically and professionally, maybe many times. But just wondering, as a father and in general, who studies political science, what is that degree for? Do I need a degree in political science to be talking about politics?
I'm so excited you asked, and congrats to your daughter. And also going overseas for college is super great. That's a really big deal. I taught, as I said, at NYU Shanghai, and a lot of American students went abroad for all 4 years, and I just think it's super powerful.
Well, China is not the Netherlands.
Look,
but
she made a better choice.
I don't know.
I enjoyed my time in China, but the Netherlands has it figured out on a few more dimensions, I would say, on balance. Although when I was there, pot was like basically free-flowing in China. A lot of people don't think of it that way. At least among foreigners, you could just stand on the street. Anyway, political science is the scientific study of politics. So it's looking at political things like people going to vote, people having certain political beliefs, who ends up winning an election, what makes a government more effective or efficient, why do some countries have higher literacy rates than others, those sorts of questions, using a scientific lens to try to understand that. So I worked at 538 for a half second, and that's similar, like data-driven journalism, but that's much more kind of predictive or descriptive. So how many people say they're going to vote for Trump? How many people turned out in the last election? Let's crunch the numbers. Political science is kind of zooming out a little bit more and saying, well, why? And could we study this? Could we run experiments? Could we conduct field work? Could we do surveys to actually sort of really drum up lots and lots and lots of numbers, like 40,000 numbers, 100,000 numbers of surveys to really find out why does someone become conservative? What does it take to change someone's mind? And it's much more slow moving and much more scientific than kind of the hot takes or the talking heads or even the policy experts that you'll see on the news. It's a great gateway to law school. Most of my time teaching political science, I taught international relations, so like causes of war, and comparative politics, so like causes of democracy versus autocracy and consequences of those things. And most of my time in office hours was talking to students who were stressed about getting into law school. So it's like an ideal path to law school, but it's also a great path to anything in government, anything policy related, health policy, whatever kind of policy you want. But most of all, later I taught data science, so pure like statistics, math, programming, and I wish every one of my data science students at NYU had been forced to take political science, because most things that we want to use data to understand are really complicated and really hard to make sense of, whether it's like equality and justice or access to technology or whatever it is, climate, like these are big topics. And political science makes you really, really good at using this precision of science around things that we could be tempted to just argue and scream about. And I think that kind of like translating the complex, interesting, weird social world into numbers and back with humility and care is something I wish all of us could do it. So you don't need political science to talk about politics, but I think it totally helps.
All right. I've written down a whole bunch of things to follow up. But first, I just wanted to ask your hot quick take.
Bring it, yeah.
Hot quick takes, folks. New segment we do. I just launched it just now.
Yeah, perfect.
Hot
intro music
takes.
for the quick take segment. Yeah.
Polling, political polling. It has gotten a real rough reputation over the last few presidential cycles because it's gotten a lot of things wrong. So many say it's lost credibility. We shouldn't pay any attention to it. In terms of the prediction of its outcomes, there are other criticisms that it's somehow corrupted. I don't know which poll to trust. And then finally, that somehow polling actually affects people's behaviors in a good or bad, honest or real way that affects democracy in maybe a bad way, I think is the criticism. What are your thoughts on any of those thoughts? Did I even come close to describing people's feelings on polling?
You came very close. We could do a poll of polls a poll of polling, and I think it would come out roughly how you're like, I don't want to do it. It's crap.
Stumbled through that.
Yeah. I'll start with the last point you just made, which is, this idea of, I think it's called the Hawthorne effect, which is the idea that the very act of studying something can affect the people in the study. Like if you're going into a meeting and you're like, the boss is going to watch how well you work with others, you're going to be like real weird in that meeting. And so the logic with polling is if you know that, think about 2016, if it looks like your candidate, according to the polls, is going to win in a landslide, your incentive to go out to vote diminishes. Now, a lot of that is very silly because mathematically our vote doesn't really matter unless we live in like Pennsylvania, and then I guess it matters times a million. But mathematically your vote doesn't matter no matter what. But we still vote.
On a presidential.
On a presidential, yeah, local, it matters. And then again, ironically, we don't vote nearly as much on local elections, even though our vote statistically matters a lot more.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Huge problem that I've been working on for a long time in my town.
Oh, great. Yeah. Cool. In your comedy? Oh, that's awesome.
No, not in my comedy. In my town, I'm part of my local Democratic Party.
Oh, cool.
And we are the Clarkstown Democrats in Rockland County, New York, and we have more Democrats registered than Republicans, but we lose every election. Why?
Yep, exactly. Even the mayoral, I live in New York City, the mayoral race that was national, international news, we still had it's higher turnout than usual, but still relatively low turnout compared to the presidential or even midterm elections.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there is some traction or some reason to think that indeed what we see in the polls might be driving whether or not we go out to vote. The similar sort of thing is like you look at Google Maps and you see there's a ton of traffic, so you're like, oh, I won't drive right now. That causes traffic to go down. So it's hard to really pinpoint, did someone not vote because of the polls, but there's reason to believe that that's there. I think overall that effect is fairly minimal. Mm-hmm. I also think that at least if you lived through 2016, you've learned that you shouldn't you can't trust anything, like you can't be confident in any outcome. And so I think that effect is relatively minimal in the scheme of things. To your previous questions, I am biased because I was at 538 and they make a living through polling or through aggregating polls. But I think that I'm more optimistic about the power of political polls than most. I will say that the best approach is to look at polls in the aggregate, not any one single poll. A single polls are noisy, the samples are small, the response rates are minimal. So I wouldn't, when we all got excited, and I was guilty of it too, when we all got excited about that Iowa poll right at the end, right before the Trump-Harris election that showed Harris up by 1 million. I'm guilty of it, my emotions get the better of me, but a single poll, they're very, very, very noisy measures. It's sort of like, how many steps do you take in a day is going to vary a ton today versus tomorrow versus the next day. You've got to look at the average. So in general, the second piece is that people in general are really bad at probabilities. So even the 2016 election, a lot of the New York Times and some of the other pollsters, I think, were wrong in terms of how they presented the numbers. The numbers showed something like Clinton likely to win, but then their little needle was like, it's 100% chance. I will say I wasn't at 538 at the time, but they were much more circumspect where they were like, there's like a 1 in 3 chance. I forget the exact numbers. A 1 in 3 chance that Trump could win. And in our brains, 2/3 versus 1/3, 2/3, you're like, yeah, I'll take that bet every time. But 1/3 of the time, things happen. And so I think we need to talk more carefully about probabilities. An election that is a 60-40 feels like it could be a landslide, but that means 40% of the time. Like if you're flipping a coin that's 6 to 10, it's biased to one side, you're still going to see the weaker side sometimes. And so low probability events are still likely, and we're bad at thinking about that. So I think it's less the polls and more the communication of the polls. But I will also agree that we are wrestling with how to reach everybody. I think in 2016, we called it the shy Trump voter. I think in maybe 2020, maybe 2024, we didn't do as good of a job as actively reaching people who are going to vote for Trump, because if you think about talking to someone through the polls, you're calling someone, you're getting a number that you don't recognize. You have to get the call. You have to answer the call. You have to listen to the thing. You have to then say, okay, I'm going to go through whatever this is and then tell someone who you're going to vote for. Right. It's going to reward people who are more politically engaged or more politically passionate. And I think a lot of Trump voters, this is speculation, a lot of Trump voters are actively upset with the system. So if the system is calling and saying who you're going to vote for, you're maybe more likely to hang up. I don't know what the actual mechanism is, so I'm not totally confident we're getting all voters equally, but I'm not ready to throw them out. I think polls can still be very useful, but we need to be a lot more thoughtful about them. One of my colleagues, the last thing I'll say on this, one of my colleagues from 538, Rooy Mehta, he's now a professor of journalism at Columbia, he said something like, we should pay attention to polls, but we shouldn't worship polls. And I think the problem is we tend to worship them. And I'm guilty. I click refresh leading up to an election too.
Well, I want to talk more about that in the future if you're ever interested in coming back and talking to me after this first time. But I don't like to make assumptions. Therapists said that's bad to do.
My therapist said I shouldn't agree to things out of the gates, but I'll be there. I'm available. I'll just stay online. You come back whenever you're ready. I'll be there.
That is so kind and generous. Okay, so you outed yourself as, I guess, being not for Donald Trump just now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And I wonder how you publicly talk about your own political views before we get into it.
Yeah.
I make assumptions about people, and I figured that of you, but you're a political science professor and data scientist and all the things that you are. And so when you're teaching, and when you're on podcasts like mine or anything else, how do you talk about your own personal point of view? Are you very open and transparent? Do you hide anything?
Thank you for asking that. I have wrestled with that for a really long time. Before my political science classes, especially for undergraduate students who are new, who think you're signing up for like a debate class or a, discuss the current events sort of class, and it's like we're really going to do a lot of math. I do start with a big preface that's like, we are all political people. We've signed up for this class. You probably have an interest in politics. I'm here. I have an interest in politics. As a human, I have my own set of beliefs and preferences, but I can also be a scientist and say, and do the very best that I can to say, I want to truly understand what's going on in the world. I'm not trying to push my own agenda when I'm wearing this hat. So it's not a perfect analogy, but I think ideally journalism is trying to do the same thing, right? Or you can even think of a legal profession. Like, your job is to defend your client, regardless of whether you personally think they're guilty or innocent. My job as a journalist is to say what is going on in the world, regardless of what I think should be going on in the world. And my job as a political scientist is to say, here's what I'm seeing in the data. Here are the hypotheses I said I would test. Here are the results relative to those hypotheses, and set aside my partisan hat as much as I can. For a long time, I tried to be very mum about my own views because I wanted to give this signal, and I think most journalists are doing this, many political scientists do this, it's like, I am a neutral observer. But I think that's false. I think it's unfair to pretend to be like this neutral whatever, because even though I think I'm doing unbiased science, the types of questions I'm asking, the topics I'm interested in are going to be a reflection of my own normative views of the world. And I think one of the many reasons we've gotten ourselves into a lot of trouble in the political communication space is that people who are biased are pretending to be unbiased. And I think it's more honest for me to say, of course I'm a biased person. I try not to be. I try to be as open-minded as I can. I go out of my way to talk to people I disagree with. I like to think I'm separating my scientist hat from my voter hat and my debate watcher hat. But I'm all one person. And so I think we need to all be a little bit more humble about the fact that I can't strip away all my biases, but I also have to be comfortable talking about things that are inconsistent with my biases, right? Like I'll just say this. I personally think that what ICE is doing is horrible. I think that we should allow more immigration. And I did a bunch of research looking through the data on immigration, and the numbers around immigration have been at a historic high. And so I see why some people would think we need to do something about it. And so you have to be able to hold multiple views in your head. Anyway, I think I have eventually come to the realization that I'm not leading with my views, especially in my work, but I don't think it's fair to pretend I don't have them.
I love all of that and appreciate the honesty and transparency. But I also think that I guess I'm pretty influenced by these ideas around ethical journalism and the idea that people like, I think, Masha Gessen, who's a really respected writer, I think writes for the New Yorker, has written several books. I interviewed her years ago. And she talks about, I think, having journalists should have a moral clarity. And I like to pick the subject of economics to exercise this theory, which is like, if I'm arguing with you about economics, I actually like to go back, whether you know anything about economics or don't, and I don't know much, but I've interviewed a lot of smart economists, but I use it as a subject because I want to know what your moral clarity is on, for example, how a budget is a moral document, as a lot of people say, a government spending budget. You spend on this, you spend on that. Doesn't that say who you are? What do you support? What kind of economy do you support? What kind of economics do you support? And what do you think about different economic models and where they're being practiced and so on? I want to know what you think is fair and just and good. And I do think on that subject, there's a lot of pseudoscience and many others. So if you start talking about supply side economics and you support that, I'm like, tried and failed. Like it's only been tried in one place at one time, really, and a couple other places all in the same country. Really failed miserably. And so we can't even talk about that. That's not a thing math wise. So what do you think about just the kind of the moral clarity and the ethical journalism arguments if you're familiar with them? And I have obviously a passing familiarization with them, but I think I like it.
I will say I have never formally studied journalism, and so I don't know like intrinsically in a deep way anything about sort of like how journalists are taught about ethics and moral clarity. But one thing that comes to mind as you're describing that, and it's a great example, is in political science, for decades, we have been trying to measure democracy. So if we want to say things like democracy is on the decline in the United States, or democracy is on the decline around the world, or is it increasing, or what makes it increase, and whatever, you have to put a number to it somehow. And it's incredibly difficult to do. There's lots and lots of different outfits that do it. The Economist Intelligence Unit, Freedom House, a place called Polity 5, a place called VDEM, all great. Happy to provide links to all those data sets. But they all point to slightly different numbers. But one of the big critiques of measures of democracy is that they were all built by people over decades who thought democracy was a good thing.
Right.
So just studying it is itself a normative statement. And it implies that we're all working towards better. And then you even look at the way we do it. We like on all the graphs, it's like democracy is like green or blue, and autocracy or dictatorship is like red or black or whatever, right? Like darker, bloody, blah. And then we would always talk about we're improving towards democracy, we're declining away from it. And I am vaguely pro-democracy, but there's some strengths in autocratic systems. I lived in China for a couple of years. They do a lot of things wrong. They do a few things right. Like their subway is spotless, for example. That's one of many nice things. But in general, obviously, it's a complicated place. One of the other problems, so A, you have this normative view that like the measure is such that we're like just measuring the thing suggests that thing is the goal. But it also meant that we ended up having all these nuanced ways of thinking about the different types of democracy: presidential democracy, parliamentary democracy, this democracy, first past the post, all these different nuances. And then if you weren't a democracy, you were called non-democracy. But there's a ton of different regime types. There's dictatorships, there's authoritarian regimes, there's military regimes, there's charismatic leaders. And we don't have nearly as much of a robust language for the types of non-democracies out there. And that's changing now, but that was also a big oversight. And now that the world we're seeing a lot of non-democracies thrive, we don't have the vocabulary to make sense of it. And so that's starting to change. But in science, that's sort of like where you're looking is a reflection of your own values and what you're trying to do. Why are you looking at it? Because we think we need more of this thing, right? Like even that. In medicine, there's some of it, right? We think that cancer is bad and we're studying it but most people agree that it's bad. Not everyone, I guess. But when we get to these social issues like economics and politics, you are in a world where kind of the thing you're studying in the first place is going to be a reflection of the world you want to see.
Really well said. It's fascinating views on all of it. Again, each one of these threads I could stay on, but I want to get to know more of your views on any number of these things. And I did have one question that I came with for you, which is based on your background in political science and your experience as a human moving through these times. And I'm of the opinion that people who are more conservative, and I suppose this could be in any country, but let's maybe try to focus on America.
Sure.
Arrive at their opinions for any number of reasons, and obviously liberals do. And this is the question I'm asking. There's been a lot of scholarship, I guess. I don't know how good the science is on how people become or the conservative mind, and they like to talk about relationship with fear. You're more likely to be afraid, and something even about. And I always love when assholes talk about the different parts of your brain, like the cerebellum or the medulla. The people who are more likely conservative, it's in your frontal lobe. Like, shut up! You're not smart. You're not. No one. Even fucking brain scientists don't know a lot of that shit. So, but still, the question does remain: why are you conservative? Why are you liberal? But my problem with it is that used to be a more interesting conversation for political sciences and for data scientists. And now I don't know what that word means in America. And we were talking before we hit record here and went live, about having people who have differing opinions on a show like mine. And I always used to do that. Some of my closest friends were conservative. But today, I don't see them as conservative if they support Donald Trump. Right. That's not conservative by any definition of the – but yet a lot of people who obviously are conservative are more likely to be MAGA Trump supporters. And so I just wondered on your kind of general opinion of what the difference between liberals and conservatives are, if you trust any of the science around those studies, if any of it's worth talking about, and how it applies to today when I'm more likely to say I'm on Earth 1, where I do not question a consensus in science. I don't think Joe Biden lost the election, and any number of other litmus tests that I have. So what are your thoughts on any of that?
Right. Well, the short answer for is it parts of the brain? Is it your reverse to fear? Another version I've come across is that there's a preference towards sort of hierarchical ordering to society. I'm not an expert on the neuroscience of politics. My read on it is that there's some clues that there may be something there, but I wouldn't explain our world on that alone. I would say that that's maybe a piece of it, and a small piece probably at best. There are also, and this is outside of my domain as well, but it's like if your parents are conservative and you're conservative and you have something similar going on in your brain, is it because of your brain or is it because your parents are conservative and you grew up in a conservative household?
It would seem.
This
is going to be my first registered interruption, I think. Mark it down.
I'll call John and get him on the line to interrupt you. In just a minute.
It would seem that the most telling characteristic of your politics is literally where you grew up, because it would seem in Europe and Asia that more rural, less diverse areas are more likely to be considered. It would seem it's almost that simple to start.
It is kind of that simple, yeah.
My theory is now, more than ever, anybody, it's been this way for the last 30 years or so, starting with Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, can be radicalized by any number of media types, including now progressives, of course, but that has – you could grow up in a liberal area, you start listening to this radio show every day, and man, a lot can change. So that's my theory based on no science.
Your theory is spot on, because the biggest predictor statistically of what your political views are going to be are who your parents are and where you grew up. That's the biggest thing. And it's, I like to think that I came to my views because I sat on a hill and I thought really hard and I used my rational mind. But I have roughly the same views as my parents. My mother has an Om tattoo. I'm not there yet, but so I'm a little bit more moderate. But it's not like we're just picking our views and all of a sudden I'm going to have the same view as someone in South Asia and you're going to have someone in North Korea, whatever. We're very much creatures of our environment, especially when it comes to politics.
I actually do.
You do. You are a big Kim Jong-un person. You were saying that right before we started recording. Yeah. He's got some great ideas. His daughter seems really promising. That's
really what I'm looking at.
Is that your daughter, Ava? Kim Jong-un's daughter?
Ava is my
your
daughter.
Co-parents?
Is also Kim Jong. We share a daughter.
You share a daughter. It's adoptive. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hope it's okay. I revealed that to your audience.
No, it's fine. We play by improv here. I have to say yes. My daughter is the same as Kim Jong Un's.
Yeah, great. But to the liberal conservative question. So I have a lot to say about this. The main thing I will say is that it was not always the case that liberal meant Democrat and conservative meant Republican. Until maybe the early 2000s, you could very much be a Democrat who was liberal on some things and conservative on others, or a Republican who was liberal on some things or conservative on others. And traditionally, liberal conservative was about like fiscal policy and government spending and things like that. Like it was like liberal was like, I think the government should be more involved. Conservative was like, I think the government should be smaller. And that was kind of it. Anytime we're turning our political beliefs into a number, we're reducing something that is n-dimensional into something very, very narrow. So we're going to lose a lot of nuance. So even the number line, the number line of like left to right, liberal, conservative, you can measure that easily in 2 dimensions, which is, and I don't know if you remember this ahead of the Obama's first election, there was very common to be like, oh, I'm economically conservative, but socially liberal. Like that was something
fiscally conservative, socially liberal.
Fiscally conservative.
Nothing irks me more because I have all kinds of arguments about what it means to be fiscally. If you invest in something, if government invests in something, you're going to get a lot back, like education and healthcare. That then is way more fiscally conservative than, say, trickle down. I've made the argument a million times, but go ahead with the point. Sorry about
Or if you're socially liberal, then you probably should, and the government could make a difference. Then to help with some of the social liberal, whatever, right? But you could do it across, you could do social, you could do economic, whatever. It's only in the last couple of decades that it's gone. It's someone named Morris Fiorina, who's a political scientist at Stanford, is the one who figured this out originally. He coined the term party sorting, which is that we didn't necessarily, all of us as a country, grow further apart as far as like all of us are either way over to the left or way over to the right. It's that those of us who are Democrats used to be mostly liberal, but occasionally conservative. Like I'd be liberal on most things, but maybe I'm conservative on guns. I don't know, right? Or I'm conservative on most things and I'm a Republican, but I'm actually liberal on the environment because I care about the environment, right? That has changed where we're now more sorted. So Democrats are now all liberals, mostly, and Republicans are almost exclusively conservatives. And what that means is that we don't have anything to say to each other anymore. So when you used to go out to your front yard or whatever, you see your neighbor, you knew that you disagreed on a lot of things because you're a Democrat and they're a Republican. But you knew you agreed on taxes or on guns or on abortion. And you could talk about that and see each other as humans. There's a lot more that's gone on, but one fundamental change is that we no longer hold, I guess what you could call a diversity of views. Like my view on abortion, if I tell you my view on abortion and you can guess it, it would tell you my views on probably most other top issues. And that wasn't always the case. We've become much more predictable in that way. And that means we have less to say to each other, less to understand each other. The MAGA thing is kind of its own strange wing. And I know there are a lot of Republicans, conservatives, non-MAGAs who, I guess, feel left out. I'm not sure what the word is for them.
I think it's best described as a cult simply because if you have a moral principle, say, against war and against, let's say, abortion, if Trump came out tomorrow and said, I'm pro-abortion and I'm starting a war, it shocks the conscience of most of us that people who were with him on the opposite opinion a day ago are now going with, like, there's a blurring. And then I would also, so many other changes, but there used to be an agreement not on abortion or gay marriage or race or religion or any topic, but we did used to agree that moral character mattered for people in public office. Certainly Republicans touted that shit a lot more and how they described it and family values and all that fucking nonsense. But they used to at least say it. And now moral character, not only does it not matter for the president, but it doesn't matter for a lot of elected Republicans. I would even argue Supreme Court justices, potentially. Brett Kavanaugh, but maybe you didn't believe the accusation. So I just feel like everything now is best. The cult mindset and thinking does seem to be accurate about those who are, quote, MAGA, still Trump supporters this late in the game. What do you think?
I mean, I think you were onto something with your statement earlier about Rush Limbaugh. I think that the split, and it's hard to get your head around it empirically, but the split in terms of no longer having to watch the same news is a huge problem. And the removal of the fairness doctrine, the growth of talk radio, then you add the internet, and then you add social media, then you add AI, and you add all this stuff. You can now live in a world where you never have to hear a viewpoint you disagree with. And one of the things that has really struck me is when I do go out of my way, and I really do try to do this, to speak with people who vote opposite how I do, think differently from how I do. One of the things I'm most struck by, and there's some selection bias because I'm still speaking to people who maybe they voted for Trump, but they're still willing to talk to me. So they're not so far. I'm not talking to the people who would not even talk to me. Okay. One of the things I'm struck by most is that when they talk about why they voted for Trump, even if they think they don't like him morally, why they voted for Trump, they're citing reasons I've never even heard of. It's not even so much that we're hearing, I mean, there might be falsehoods and all of that, but for the most part, we're just hearing different narratives. So a lot of the stuff that we are hearing about the immoral, horrible things Trump is doing, has done, things in his history, the other side isn't even talking about. In the same way that on the left, I have almost no idea what was the issue with Hunter Biden's laptop. I don't know why anyone cared about it. I don't know what they thought was in it. People in the other camp think that about like big things, like Stormy Daniels and various impeachments and you just hear different narratives.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is hypocrisy, but I think even more of it is simply not knowing. Not that that's an excuse. I think it's our job to know, but I'm guilty of it too. I'm not checking out Fox News every day. I should. I don't want to.
The best example, though, that being said, the best example of what you just said, and I could add a whole bunch of the other ones, certainly because I covered the Obama administration and what the right wing was drumming up about the Fast and Furious and Benghazi, and then they investigated it and they found nothing, and there was nothing. And it was, just underpinned by talking heads just making shit up for their shows that day. But the most crystallizing or best example to me is that the right, overwhelmingly the far right, conspiracy podcast YouTubers and plenty of Republicans in office were heavily focused on the Epstein issue, even though progressives like me were interviewing Julie K. Brown from the Miami Herald before those people ever even got on board with it, to be clear. That being said, they talked about it more and tried to connect it with a shadowy group of billionaires and came up with all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories that, we don't need them because the truth is bad enough, in my opinion.
Right.
But once it became very connected to Donald Trump, they seem to have abandoned it. Certainly, they believe they've abandoned that principle, that issue that they drummed up. All of a sudden, now we're more focused on it on Earth One, if you will, potentially. And I feel like that example is a really good one to illustrate
It's a great
what
example.
I'm talking about.
And it brings to mind two things. One is more recently, I have yet to, and I interview political scientists constantly in my own life who study this more specifically, so political identity, beliefs, anchoring belief, all that kind of stuff. And I have yet to find a good explanation for why Trump seems to truly be able to do no wrong among his base. I mean, the number of times in the past, it feels like infinity years that we've been dealing with this guy, that I have had the naivete to think this'll do it and been completely wrong is daily, right? Sometimes twice daily. Because he really does have a hold on the psyche, the identity, and maybe the language that we were talking before of if we were better understanding kind of, charismatic personality, kills me to call him charismatic, but kind of personality-based politics and strongman politics. We really haven't been studying that in the United States, and so maybe that's the lens we need to use more of. But the other thing that comes to mind is in the 1950s, one of the first efforts to ever quantify politics was done at the University of Michigan. Go Blue, that's where I went. And they conducted something called the American National Election Study, and you can go see it. It's called electionstudies.org. It's the longest running study of public opinion in the United States, full stop. And one of the things they did is until the 1950s, political scientists assumed that when a human received new information that contradicted their previous information, they would integrate it with the existing information and update their belief accordingly. And that humans had consistent sets of beliefs and would choose candidates that were closest to their beliefs, and we would all think about it very carefully. Then they did this survey, finally got a look at what was going on in Americans, and basically, I'll find the quote and send it to you because it's remarkable. It's these people in the 1950s being like, wow, very few people have coherent, consistent belief systems. Even in the 1950s, when we felt like there was a lot more order to how politics was run, people would say, oh, I think this. And then 2 seconds later, they'd say the same thing, but framed a slightly different way. It's like, oh, yeah, I agree with that. Or like, Trump said this, I'll agree with that. And so we've always been creatures of information shortcuts, following kind of our key elite guy that we pick and we follow. Back then, we just had a more mainstream set of information and shared cues and shared leaders. But humans, at least Americans, and I'm sure this is a human thing, we're just not rational. We think that we are, and we're not. Well, we follow information shortcuts. We follow what our friends are doing. The algorithms are accelerating all of that. That is something that's been true about people forever.
Yes, but tuck right out of my ass. But
Let's go.
A lot about this, both from your experience and your research, which is the difference in human communities from country to country, culture to culture, tribe to tribe. Specifically, I do want to ask you an America versus China or a China versus anywhere question. But before, and maybe you can get to it in this, but I had two finals, but I guess I just fast forwarded to that, and nobody cares about me working out what I want to ask you out loud, but I'm doing it, and it's awful.
I care. I like to see it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
that's what we would do with our students in office hours. Be like, talk me through how you reason through this. So you're good.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wow, everybody just left. So just one quick lack of nuanced generalization, and I would love for it to be wrong, but I just feel more and more like this in today's American political mind or methods. I think that, again, this is generalization and it's not a lot of nuance. People who are liberal and more Democrat leaning, party leading at least, more progressive, still have a belief that government is important and should be doing what's in the public's interest, in the public good. There's all kinds of political theories, and there's a history of that even in America. People on the right, Republicans, conservatives generally, really don't like government. They don't trust government. And what that's leading me to believe, and this is mainly an observation in my town, but as a result of that thinking, elected Republicans are more likely, because they resent government, to use it to enrich themselves and their friends, giving their friends jobs who aren't qualified, who then take government contracts. We've seen this in every Republican administration. You see it with Democrats too. And it's not to say that Democrats aren't corrupt. I mean, Robert Menendez had gold bars in his jacket. It was hilarious if it wasn't so bad. Not saying that Democrats don't enrich themselves and aren't corrupt. I'm saying, based on this theory, Republicans are far more likely to, once they get elected, to use government to enrich them and their friends. It's happening in my town. It's happening now in this administration more than any administration ever anywhere. And it leads me to believe that that's because of our different beliefs on what government should be. Democrats want to use it for good. Look at what Mamdani in New York City is already doing. And Republicans want to destroy it and take the contracts for themselves and appoint their friends to the head of agencies so that they can do that. Where do you think, what am I missing, and where's the nuance?
I mean, I can start with a China example for you, which is this is not science. I read this on Reddit, but it did link to a real article, but okay. Where apparently some political leader was recently caught with like all kinds of gold in his house and was arrested and given the death penalty. He has not killed yet. He's on death row, but sentenced to death for corruption. So, we're not there yet in the United States, but corruption as a death penalty would be a complicated world to live in. I was very struck by killing people for that. But in the United States, I don't know the numbers on Republicans versus Democrats getting rich from their time in office. I mean, I know that Nancy Pelosi has come under a bunch of fire for various trades that she's done ahead of various other policies or things getting passed. I don't know the numbers on it. I'm inclined to agree with you that, I mean, I certainly think that the current administration is pocketing quite a bit from everything that's going on. I don't know. One of the things I read when I first started in my graduate program that made me really angry was a book. I forget what the book was called, but it was about something called selectorate theory, which is basically about why leaders go to war. And one of the claims was that all leaders want to do, members of Congress, presidents, everyone, all they want to do is stay in power, that's their number one goal. And I was very horrified by this. 2006 me was like, no way. It was like, no, my leaders, the ones I've been voting for, want to make a better world. They don't want to just stay in power. But the longer I've been alive, 10 years later, 20 years later, it's 2016, right? Is that what's happening? 20 years later, I think that really that is what leaders want to do, is they just want to stay in power. And whether they do that through getting super wealthy and promoting all their friends and cronyism and all the stuff that we see on the Republican side of things, or whether that is through the Mamdani version, like those are different strategies towards staying in power. And I think that at the moment we're in a world where Republicans are finding out, and I think we are all finding out in real time, how much they can get away with in terms of expanding executive power, being inconsistent, knowing that you'll just get Fox News to spin, or whatever news, Truth Social, whatever, to spin your story the way you want to. We're seeing people really push the boundaries of, a lot of political scientists I've talked to make sense of what's going on have expressed a genuine surprise that the norms and institutions in this country are as weak as they are. I think we all thought it would all hold a little bit more. Yeah. And we've just never had a leader who pushed it in this way. And this kind of Trump 2.0, we're just seeing, like, if the guardrails are off and people in power are being as selfish as they want to be and doing everything they can to stay in power, that they're going to do it. I like to think that Mamdani is doing the nice things that he's doing because he cares about the city. There are also things that, by the way, are going to keep him in power because that's what people voted for.
When you mentioned the conclusion or the idea that people who get power, the main thing is they want to stay in power. I mean, I would argue, I can make an argument that that's a good thing if someone in, quote, power, and maybe we could just stop using the word to make my argument sound a little bit better. If someone is a government leader and they are effective and every term they do what's in the public's interest, and I can name a bunch of people who I think are, no one's perfect, but I think that experience and that connection and that network they have could make them believe, and I believe this, I'm actually the best person to do this job in my district and in my state. And you kind of have to think that to run anyway.
Yeah.
And so I'm really effective. I want to get reelected so I can keep doing these good things. And I can think of so many members of the House. And I could, I could argue that that's the case with Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, a number of progressive senators that I think probably should stay in power because they're actually good at their job and they seem to have a certain moral clarity. I actually am not that cynical about a number of specific people.
I agree, and I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive. You can want to stay in power and care about the things that you're empowered to do. I think that that's the ideal. I think what we're seeing is that people are learning they don't have to give a shit about the country or what happens. Or they have very horrible views. Stephen Miller is not an elected official, but I think he thinks he's doing good for the country.
Do you think he thinks he's doing good for the country? Yeah, I guess he does.
I think he does.
Because
I think plenty of others know they're not, but what little I know of him, I've met a few people who've known him since he was in college, and he's just been a raging asshole ever since.
Yeah, an egoist and the worst kind of way. But I mean,
xenophobic, anti-immigrant guy.
Yeah, he's doing good for the country that he would like America to be. But I suppose we all are doing that. I'd like it to be a multicultural democracy. I don't think he wants that.
Yeah, I don't think he wants that either. I recently saw name drop Boris Johnson speak, and not on purpose. I didn't know he was going to be there, but he was up there, and it was like, all right, everyone, we're going to talk about immigration. And I was like, this will be interesting. And they said, Boris, or Mr. whatever his name, the Prime Minister, are you pro or against immigration? He was like, immigration is fine. It's multiculturalism that's bad. And I had to pick my jaw up off the ground. I was like, we don't like multiculturalism? And apparently we don't. There's a very big push for assimilation, which I hadn't been aware of until a couple months ago.
Well, I guess on that note, and the final question is a big question, but the difference between China and the U.S., obviously the governments, most of us have no idea. You lived there, studied there, taught there. And, I don't know if it's a binary question that you can answer, but I do feel like a lot of people are trying to answer it that China is the future for any number of reasons that we could talk about, and that America is the past. We've seen empires fall throughout human history. It certainly doesn't seem that unrealistic to happen. But I guess my question is a little bit more about culture, and because just coming back from Europe, I got a little taste of kind of social democracy, but that obviously seeps into culture, and there are all kinds of political theorists that have obviously studied this and written books and volumes, many of which I'm sure you've studied. I don't know about just the differences between individualism and collectivism and capitalism and socialism. But my point is, one clearly works a lot better for more people, and one clearly works a lot better for fewer people. It does seem pretty simple to me in some ways, but what do you think are the complexities, and how did they play out in China? Are those people happy?
I love this question. So first, I will say I lived in China from 2013 to 16. I then visited once or twice a year through 2019, but I have not been back since COVID. So things change fast over there, so I can't speak to what's been going on over the last 6 years. It's also gotten a lot more conservative. Xi Jinping has gotten more power. There's been a lot more anti-Western sentiment. But even when I was there, that was sort of starting. But I will tell you a couple of things. One, when I moved there in 2013, I was devastated to go. I was trying to work at NYU New York. They weren't hiring, and they said, what about Shanghai instead? And I was like, okay, because I needed a job. So I moved from New York to Shanghai, thinking I was moving from the center of the universe to some never heard of it, not heard of it, but like some far away whatever. I land in downtown Shanghai, or I land at the airport, take the train to downtown Shanghai. The train goes 200 miles an hour. I walk out into the center of the city, and I was like, oh, this is the center of the world. New York City is a sleepy backwater village compared to what's going on here. Shanghai is 25 million people. A neighboring town city called Suzhou that I consider a sleepy village has 8 million people. It's the side of New York City. But when I went there, I was like, what kind of village is this? And how many people live here? And someone was like, 8 million. I was like, Jesus. And it's like a suburb. It's like Jersey City. Like, it's not even, so it's skyscrapers upon skyscrapers upon skyscrapers. It's subway lines that get built in a week. It's more people than you've ever seen at once in your field of vision in your life. And the day-to-day life of people, I mean, I speak from a bit of privilege, well, maybe a lot of privilege, because I was a foreigner, and foreigners typically can kind of get away with stuff a little bit more. But in general, it just feels like being in a big, giant city. And it also is a very capitalistic society. You walk around and you know, it's people make a lot of money. There's a big competitive business. There's a lot of, there's state-run business, but on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't feel socialist in any way. You buy things and you sell things, and that's it. They're much more advanced than us technologically. They were paying on their phones a decade before we were paying in the United States on our phone. Old ladies would go up and buy like buns from a street cart through their phone, and we didn't have anything like Venmo even at the time. People seem very happy. A lot of my friends are Chinese. I worked in a Chinese circus, which was my main entryway into Chinese culture. And, it's just people living their lives. Like, I'm mostly struck by the fact that it's just the same shit everywhere. It's like, you're worried about your kids. You're worried about whether you're going to keep your job. You're commuting like crazy. You're like, the traffic sucks. Like, you can't wait for the weekend. Like, it's just normal life. It's when you zoom up and it's the governments versus governments that things are ugly and weird. My closest friends in China, they and I shared the same concerns, dreams, fears, all the rest. Like, that felt very much the same.
I want to know so much more. I almost want to travel there.
You've got to. It's a fantastic place to visit.
I'm not going to, but
okay, great.
I mean, do you have food preferences?
I have very strong food preferences.
You do?
Yeah, I'm vegan, which is very difficult in China.
Dear.
Yeah.
All right. Well, based on that, time for a lightning round.
Okay, let's go.
Now, this is basically exactly like the rest of the show, and nothing changes.
Okay, great, perfect.
Yeah.
I like most lightning rounds I've been a part of end up being like that because I'm long-winded. But I'm going to keep it. I'm going to answer in one sentence. It's going to be the biggest lightning ever.
Just to try to get to know you more, actually, because I've really enjoyed this, and you're super smart and interesting, and just want everybody to get to know you a little more. So I'm going to make these up on the fly. But
okay,
how influential is music in your life? Are you a music person? And name like any band or artist that really influenced or even maybe radicalized you at any point.
I am depressingly unmusical. I like really hardcore techno that sounds like machines banging into each other. I've been recently forcing myself to take singing lessons because I'm afraid of singing. Mm-hmm. And so it's been interesting. And she's always like, what songs do you want to sing? And I don't know any songs. I'm really not a musical person.
Where did you grow up and how was your childhood?
Western Maryland, mostly fine.
How do you feel about Canada and Canadians?
I like them. I'd like to move there, I think.
Have you been there anywhere you'd like to live?
I would probably go to Montreal, or I would go like just so far north where there's just fucking nothing. Like I think I could just live in the polar ice caps. I don't know. They're melting.
You can talk about a lot of things pretty easily. How do you feel about sports and sports talk?
I was afraid you were going to ask that. I don't know anything. I don't even know what offsides is. Don't tell me. I don't want to know.
When people are talking sports, what do you do?
I either zone out or I reference one of the 2 sports-related articles I wrote at 538 8 years ago.
You crowbar it in no matter what?
I crowbar it in. Yeah.
What is a book that has really impacted the way you live your life?
There is a book, it's behind me somewhere, called Directional Living by Megan Hellerer. She was AOC's career coach, and I worked with her for a bit, and it's about how you shouldn't set long-term goals and try to work towards them. You should make choices based on what energizes you in the moment.
Ooh, really
it's
interesting.
Very good. You should have her on the show. I don't know if you ever do non-political stuff.
Oh, I definitely do.
Okay, she's great. She's like, forget all the advice you've been told about how to live your life. It's amazing. Life-changing stuff.
All right, I think what are your views on death?
I live in constant fear of it because I don't think there's anything after. I think that's it. Yeah. It is a crippling fear.
When you think about it, do you do anything? Do you switch the subject in your mind?
I think I switch the subject in my mind. But we talked about this before. I have like very serious OCD, not like keep it tidy OCD, but like real OCD. Oh. And it almost always has to do with like, if you don't touch this the right way, the people you love or the dogs you love are going to die.
Still to this day, you have those views.
Yeah.
Or those.
Yeah. Views maybe isn't. This is my core belief system. No, it's just, I know I study probability and why we're not rational for a living. And I'm sitting here being like, I tapped it 3 times. It has to be a 4th time with my 4th finger 4 times or we're all going to die. It's horrible.
One personal question, because I'm working on a book for men who are raising daughters, because my daughters are 18 and 21. And the book is I ask women about their dads. You are successful, smart, funny, original. What, if anything, do you want to share publicly about your relationship with your dad and how he influenced you, good or bad? Maybe he was terrible.
Maybe it was terrible. I love my father. He's the greatest man on earth. To the point where my therapist thinks I worship him a bit. But he's wonderful. He's a filmmaker. He has a new film coming out on PBS in May about ALS. It's called Loving John. And he's been a documentary filmmaker and a Hollywood assistant director. And I have just always thought he was the coolest. And he's a big reason why I have moved from academia to more media type stuff. Because once I asked him when I was in my 20s and miserable, I asked him what the meaning of life was. And he said, it's to shine a light on something important. And at the time I was like, oh, please. And now I think he was right.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked. Thank you for that.
Thank you for asking.
What's your dad's name?
Rob Rooy, like the cocktail and the pirate.
Holy shit.
2 O's. So I think if you go to roymedia.com, but he has like an IMDb and stuff.
2 O's. But what a burden that name must be.
It's a huge burden.
I mean, I want to Google his work, but I'm going to find Liam Neeson.
Well, the 2 O's gets you out of it.
Oh, right. But if I didn't know that,
if you didn't know that, you'd never find him.
You always got to say it. But when he says it, my name is Rob Rooy, people are like...
Right. Someone asked me once, like, what's your father's name? I was like, Rob Rooy. And they were like, be serious. I was like, it is. We tried to get him in free when we wanted to go see the movie Rob Rooy that came out in the 90s. And we were like, can he get in free? He has the same name. And we could not.
I should introduce your dad to my friend William Wallace.
Yes, you should. He had a friend named Johnny Walker for a while, but Johnny died. I shouldn't laugh. Johnny died.
Of alcohol poisoning.
If only.
Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Andrea Jones-Rooy. Really a pleasure to talk to you. I hope that you will come back. This was super enlightening. I learned a lot and really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to come back and expound on any of the many topics we covered.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, everybody, for watching live. Wait, real quick, plugs. Oh, yeah. Plugs while we're live. I'll do it again, but where do people most find your work?
Yeah, I mostly am Instagram-y, Jones-Rooy, JonesRooy, or JonesRooy.com, or politicalrealitypodcast.com, or BehindTheDataShow.com.
By the way, people don't say this much anymore, but your website's great.
Thank you.
It's really good.
Thank you. I paid someone to do it.
Yeah.
After a long time of a very bad website. I coughed it up.
Great.
Dynamo Ultima, if you want to get your website zhuzhed up, dynamoultima.com.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Another plug for the web designer.
You go.
Thank you. Really great. I really appreciate it. There she goes. That's it. That's all. Dr. Andrea Jones-Rooy. Go subscribe and support her on all the places. I'll include the links in the show notes as I do every day. Also, there's a link in there to Venmo me if you want to tip me or send me a one-time payment. That's good. You can do that. And that's all I've got for you today. I will have my interview with Eric Siegel. Well, I'll post it here for you to listen to either later today or tomorrow. I should be live today with Mara Quint and then later with Rick Smith. I think around 4 and maybe 7 or around that time I'll be live. So subscribe at YouTube and Substack to watch to get the alert that I will be live. And that is it. Jon Carroll writes and performs all the music. JonCarroll.org. Be the change you want to see in the world, and I will talk to you right here tomorrow.
Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know us right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn. for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for loss, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll